Much honor to all those that are enjoying the holidays. So I was like, let's do part of this chapter. This is a really good chapter, just like the last. So we're reading from Poverty, Ethnic Identity, and Healthcare by Vern and Bonnie Bullough. So we're at chapter 6 now. We are doing it, running through it, guys. So here we go. Page 109, chapter 6. Poverty and hunger transcend racial lines. I'm your moderator and narrator, Uriel Neveu. I'm Isis's dad. Here we go. There is a widespread general assumption among Americans that only members of minority groups are likely to be poor. Many people, even those from poverty backgrounds, do not seem to realize the extent of poverty in the United States or its chapter of the implications for the health of the nation. The president of the local chapter of the NAACP, National Association for Advancement of Colored People, a sincere, thoughtful man, stated in his recent speech, "I really do not understand how a white person can be poor. In the town I grew up in, the whites had everything. They went to the brick school and they owned all of the stores. They lived in the best houses and had all the advantages. It seems impossible that white persons would be poor unless he is lazy or stupid. For this reason, if for no other, it seems essential to state that in the 20th century America, it is still possible to be white and poor without being lazy or stupid. Poverty transcends racial lines." Mhm. White poverty exists for many of the same reasons that poverty exists among the various non-white minority groups: insufficient education, lack of employment opportunities, or chances for advancement. Too many children, poor geographical location, age, and the cycle of poverty itself, which creates feelings of powerlessness and hopelessness that makes success difficult. Many people whose income was once adequate can fall below the poverty line in their later years because Social Security or old age assistance programs do not provide incomes which are comfortable to the income levels of most people before retirement. Even those individuals who were able to save or invest some of their income during their more productive years run into difficulty because inflation has devalued their possessions and investments. Moreover, there are some aged persons who, though very much in need of assistance, are given no welfare aid. Some of these people, through ignorance, have never applied, and welfare department do not usually seek out possible recipients. Others have attempted to get some assistance, but were turned down because of they cannot prove their age or because they encounter some other technicality. Peace, highest heart, love. Yes. Much love and honor. Happy holidays, everyone. Here we go. Woo, this is already good, right? We're reading from Poverty and Hunger Transcend Racial Lines. So that's where we're at right now. In 1966, 2 out of 5 households defined as consisting of one aged person or an elderly couple fell below the poverty line, as compared with 1 in 7 in other households. Others who fall into the poverty classification are victims of technological changes, which have made their occupational skills worthless. The largest and most significant group to which this last category applies makes it living from farm related occupations. Presently, there are 14 million rural Americans who fall below the poverty line. They constitute 40% of the nation's poor, although only 30% of the total population is rural. The overwhelming bulk of the rural poor, 11 of the 14 million, are white, which means that while the urban poor compose of mosaic of ethnic identities, the rural poor are predominantly poor white from old American stock. In the revolutionary age of the 20th century, one of the most revolutionary changes in many ways has been the nature of agriculture. The extent of the agricultural revolution is indicated from the fact that in 1822 it took some 50 to 60 man hours to raise 20 bushels of wheat. By 1890, this had dropped to 8 or 10 hours, and by 1930 to 3 or 4 hours. The rate has since continued to drop, so that both in percentages and in absolute numbers, it takes fewer people to raise more than ever before. In the United States, some 18.7% of the total population was actively engaged in agriculture in 1940. By 1950, the percentage had dropped to 12.2. By 1960 to 7.8. By 1965 to 5.9, and today it is around 5%. In the process, the basic farm unit has changed from the small farmer or tenant farmer to the big business with specialized money crops, and those farmers who have survived have tremendous sums of money invested in equipment, land, and know-how. While in the long run, revolutions are often beneficial, they are usually brought about with tremendous human suffering. The agricultural revolution is no exception to this general rule, and though many have left farming voluntarily, particularly those of the younger generations, many others have been forced off the land by depression, lack of investment capital, and inability to make a living. Moreover, many still live on farms, which economically are no longer feasible, although they scratch out a living. Within the past half century, the small American farmer has led a precarious existence. World War I led to an artificial inflation in farm prices, and farmers expanded and bought equipment to take advantage of it. The farm price index reached a high of 211 in 1920, but it fell to 121 in 1921, and though it rose slightly thereafter, it fell to a new low of 68 in 1932. The result was forced sales due to bankruptcies, foreclosures, and tax delinquencies, which increased from an average of 12 per 1,000 farms in 1921 to 54 per 1,000 in 1933, since many of the people who had lost their farms were unskilled, as were the farm laborers who were also forced onto the market. They sought the lowest paying jobs in the cities or migrated elsewhere to find farm work. Large numbers of residents of Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas, whose economic plight was worsened by the Dust Bowl of the period, migrated to California in search of jobs in the fruit and vegetable fields. As we mentioned in the earlier chapter, John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath painted a classic picture of this displaced group as it slowly worked its way westward. Today, more than half of the people born in such states as Arkansas no longer live there. The average size of farms of all kinds increased from about 150 acres in the 1930s to over 300 acres in the 1960s, mostly through the elimination of small farms. Woo! We've seen this happening, right? I know I grew up on farms, and so my uncles had farms, and we just saw, these big corporations. It was deep. Peace, highest heart, love. Thank you. Yes, right, good. Much love. Ryan, oh, much love. And Igor, we're doing it. All right. Mostly through the elimination of small farms. In fact, an estimated 2,500,000 farms were eliminated during the 30-year period, and an equal number of farm families displaced. Large numbers of farms today are still economically not paying their way, and the elimination continues increasingly. The farmer has either to expand radically to justify his investment in equipment or sell out to still larger owners. Some still hang on, trying to supplement their farm wages with a job in the nearby town. But such jobs are increasingly difficult to obtain as the small town itself is hit by the changing nature. And increasingly difficult to obtain as the small town itself is hit by the changing nature of agriculture. Small town merchants, businessmen, tradesmen, and others have perhaps undergone as radical a change as the farmer as America becomes increasingly urbanized. The extent of their dilemma is evidenced from the fact that only 1/4 of the rural poor actually live on farms. The other 3/4 of them live in the small towns and villages. See, we've seen this, right? The commute and the change. Much love, Wang. Highest heart love. Oh man. We are reading Poverty, Ethnic Identity, and Healthcare. This was written by Vern and Bonnie Bullough in the early 1970s. So we get to see the correlation of healthcare in the States and how this section particularly is poverty and hunger transcend racial lines, which is very key because we're getting to it. Thank you so much for reading here. Happy holidays, happy Hanukkah. Yes, happy Kwanzaa, Merry Christmas. Thank you all. Job opportunities in the rural towns are scarce and becoming scarcer, and eventually many of these people will be forced to migrate to major urban centers without the grub stake that the sale of farms land might have given them. Unfortunately, large numbers of the rural poor are handicapped in seeking jobs when they do move to the city because of their low educational level, which averages only about 8.8 years of schooling. Still, another factor which has handicapped the farmer in his struggle against poverty is the size of his family. Though it is a truism that high birth rates tend to correlate with low educational and income levels, there is also a cultural lag involved as far as rural Americans are concerned. This is because before the era of the mechanized farm, a large family was an economic asset since so many hands were needed to carry out the work on the farm. Although the trend is downward, Rural families are still somewhat larger than urban ones. Rural poverty exists everywhere in the United States, but there are groups of people who face a more desperate situation than others, such as the residents of the Southern Appalachians, most of whom are white. The Southern farmers outside of Appalachia, many of whom are black, and the migrant farmers workers throughout the country who tend to have mixed ethnic identities. Although Mexican American farm laborers are predominant in the western states, in other areas of the country, this is not the case. All right, we're at the top of page 113, Appalachian. Thank you. Oh, this is beautiful. Much love. Oh, thank you, Wang. Highest heart, love, and honor. Yes, we got to do it for the people, you know, because that's what's going to help us progress, right? If we all can align. And speaking of that, guys, if you have a planet tracker, you should see the alignment of all the planets right now. They're all so beautiful. Oh my gosh, on the east-west, on the east line in the heavens, oh, they're all aligned. It's beautiful. Appalachia, one of the most troubled regions in terms of economic difficulties, and which can serve as a mirror for other areas, is the Southern Appalachians, variously defined, but which include parts of Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, North Carolina, Virginia, Kentucky, and West Virginia. Some surveys also include parts of Maryland or South Carolina, which are on the fringe of the area. The hardcore, however, covers 190 counties in some 600 miles long and nearly 250 miles across at its widest point. It encompasses approximately 80,000 square miles, and in the 1960 census contained 5,672,178 people. The region was identified as a problem area first in the 1930s when the United States Department of Agriculture concluded that the area held the highest concentration of low-income farms in the country. Moreover, the density of the farm population was much greater than the richest agricultural areas of the Middle West, but without any real major cash crop. The Cumberland Plateau area, included in the Appalachian area, stood out as the lowest income group in the United States. Agriculture in the middle 1930s, with a gross income per farm inhabitant of less than $150 in most of the counties. Six counties had more than half their population on the relief during the Depression. A study made in the 1930s concluded that 350,000 people should leave the region's agriculture and that 60,000 should leave mining. This before the current radical changes in farming. In this region, the Depression, through its public programs, actually raised living standards for many families who previously had lacked contact with the American standard of living. The region remained one of with a high rate of relief and a low basis for economic security. Self-employment and a deficit of large-scale industry left many occupations uncovered by Social Security, thus placing a double burden on welfare agencies. In addition, residential requirements for aid, which have only recently been modified serve to immobilize many workers and their families in problem areas. Although Appalachia is now becoming less isolated than it was and more industrialized, parts of the area still lag behind the rest of the nation. The small Appalachian farmers, perhaps the last of the rugged individualists, live on subsistence farms which grow only a few staples, so they cannot afford to cut back production to benefit from the federal government's crop subsidies program. They need to plant all of their land in order to have enough to yield feed their families. Yet the overuse of the soil has in long run decreased that production. So their situation is a deteriorating one. The small coal mining enterprises also continue to fail as other types of fuel replace coal, and in many areas there is no other alternative employment. Because of that depressed economic situation, Appalachians receive more outside relief from government, church, and private agencies in proportion to their contribution than any other area of comparable size in the nation. The very factors which once had survival value in the region, a dogged independence, a suspicion of outsiders, and a low value for education, today serve to perpetuate the poverty of the area. And when Appalachians migrate to cities outside of the areas, these qualities act as barriers to their success and acceptance in the urban environment. Still, migration seems to be one way of solving the area's problems. And during the 10 years between 1950 and 1960, the southern Appalachia region lost more than 1 million persons, a number equal to a fifth of the total population in 1950. As a result, the 1960 census revealed a regional population decrease for the first time since the region was settled. Since the migrant population was made up primarily of young adults between 18 and 34 years of age, the number of persons in dependent ages, particularly those under 15 and over 65, rose in that area. This further complicated the problems of those who have stayed because it was the most vigorous people had left. Thank you all for being here. We're doing it. We're at page 114. I'm gonna read this next little section and then we're gonna pause and I'll come back. Thank you all for being here, enjoying your holiday with me. Hi, it's Heartlow. Still, migration seems to be one way of solving the area's problems, and during the 10 years between 1950 and 1960, the southern Appalachia region lost more than 1 million persons, a number equal to a fifth of the total population in 1950. As a result, the 1960 census revealed a regional population decrease for the first time since the region was settled. Since the migrant population was made up primarily of young adults between 18 and 34 years of age. We just read that. Many of the migrants have gone to cities in the South, such as Atlanta or Birmingham, but those in the northern part of the Cleveland, Chicago, Dayton, Detroit, and other major cities, although Appalachians are of old American stock and could popularly be termed WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. In the large northern urban areas, they are treated as a minority group. There are Appalachian enclaves in the slums that border the Black and Puerto Rican settlements and replace the Italians and Poles who are moving to the suburbs. The talk and the folk Wisdom is from down home rather than from a foreign country. But the poverty, the underemployment, the big families, the inadequate housing, and the discouragement is the same as it is in the parts of the slums in which members of ethnic minority groups live. We'll pause right here. We're at the top of page 115. We're going to go into migrant farm workers when we pick up tomorrow. Hi, it's Heart Love, guys. Oh, this is so good. We are doing it. I wish you all have an honorable and wonderful evening and rest. Thank you all. Yes, if you want to donate, that would be awesome because I'm not monetized. So, yes, if you would like to Cash App, that's Your Healing Uriel, $ before that. And PayPal is my email. So it's URIEL Riley, RILEY, Uriel Riley at Gmail. My first and last name at Gmail for PayPal. Thank you all so much. It's heart, love, and honor. Enjoy your evening. We'll be reading some more. Love to all the readers. Look at these. This is Unikite and Golden Healer. Hi, it's heart, love. Much love and honor. Peace to all. Yes, we gotta love one another.